But what we find is that if something makes us richer, or something makes our lives more efficient, or something makes our lives advance in terms of the quality of life, it gets adopted.
Anthony Scaramucci is an American financier, author, speaker, and thought leader, and the founder and managing partner of SkyBridge Capital, a global alternative investment firm, offering multi-strategy hedge fund products and advisory services for individuals and institutions.
If you are trying to do something, do it. You'll be happier with yourself if you do it and you fail than if you don't try. I've been humbled by life, I've been humbled by markets, and you can be wrong. But if you're wrong for the right reasons, I'm okay with it.
Hello and welcome to the Dinis Guarda YouTube podcast show. Once again powered by businessabc.netcities, abc.com and wisdomia.ai. We are here to continue profiling global players and the business leaders that are shifting and creating new opportunities for the way we deal with our business, our technologies, and especially a lot of things related with the AI massive revolution that is actually changing everything about humanity and businesses. One of the things we always like is to profile people, but as well to highlight how we can actually look on the experience to the achievement for the companies and what happens around that. So today I'm quite excited to welcome to our series Anthony Scaramucci. Anthony Scaramucci is an American financier, author, speaker, and thought leader, and the founder and managing partner of SkyBridge Capital, a global alternative investment firm, offering multi-strategy hedge fund products and advisory services for individuals and institutions. SkyBridge also actively invests in the Web3 space, most recently putting $150,000 into Kinto ahead of its token launch, joining established institutional backers. He is also the founder and chairman of SALT, a global platform for thought leadership and networking, focusing on finance, technology, and geopolitics through events and digital content. Anthony began his professional career as director at Goldman Sachs. Later, he became a founder and co-managing partner of Oscar Capital Management, which was sold to Neuberger Berman. He later joined Lehman Brothers. Anthony also launched Flatter, a platform for premium NFT art and collectibles. Anthony is co-host of two podcasts, The Rest is Politics US and Open Book. He is the author of multiple books, including most recently The Little Book of Bitcoin, with a foreword from Michael Saylor. Anthony was named Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year and ranked number 47 in Cointelegraph's top 100 influencers in crypto and blockchain. He is also a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and has been active in philanthropic efforts. He has contributed to the media through hosting Wall Street Week on Fox Business Network and as a regular CNBC commentator. Anthony is also recognized as one of the top voices on LinkedIn. He holds a BA in history from Tufts University and is a Doctor of Law JD from Harvard Law School.
Antonio Scaramucci, you are a legend when it comes to the financial world and as well the digital and activist world. So first question is, how would your 13 years old self look at you today?
Well, first of all, it's great to be with you, Dennis. Thank you. I would say that my 14-year-old self would be happy in some ways, and I think astonished in some ways. But I think the other side of it is that my 14-year-old self would say, hey, that went by very quickly, 14 to 61, maybe work a little less. My 14-year-old self would probably have my grandmother in my ear telling me, hey, work a little less. It goes by fast, Subido is what my grandmother would have said, But, I think I'm I try to talk very candidly to people, very openly. I'm very proud of what I've accomplished because I think I've honored my parents and I think I've honored my grandparents. And I know we have people listening in. I think that's really, for me, the number one thing. I could have made more money. I could have done certain things that I would have reflected back upon and said, okay, I got money for that, but it was an ethical violation, or it was something that would have hurt somebody, or something nefarious. I didn't go in that direction, and so I think I'm 61 years young as opposed to 61 years old because I've tried to live with some level of integrity. Not perfect, not saying that I've gotten it all right, but I'll tell a very humbling story. I sold a piece of my business to Sam Bankman-Fried. People may know who he is. They could Google him. He turned out to be a fraud. Very painful moment for me, but very proud of myself and my team. We did everything right. We had everything cataloged. When the Department of Justice asked me for my information, I gave it to them. They asked me to submit for an interview. I sat with them for many hours to discuss the situation. And I remember walking out of there, saying the lessons that you learned as a kid or the lessons that you learn in the Catholic Church or whatever they may be, they paid off because maybe I could have more money. Maybe I could have a fancier car, but what difference would that make? In fact, I would say this to young people that if you live with integrity, there will always be opportunity for you. So even if you have a miss, I got five. If you really follow my career, I was fired from Goldman Sachs and I got rehired. I got fired from the White House, and then people thought, okay, he's finished, and it's 8 years later. Turns out I'm not finished. I made the mistake with Sam Bankman-Fried. A lot of people were writing my financial obituary. That didn't happen either. So I think it's because if you live with some level of integrity, sir, you're always going to have some opportunity. I think that's the big lesson, and I think my 14-year-old self would be happy with that. But he would be like, have another cup of coffee, drink another glass, calm down. What are you doing? Right? That's probably what my 14-year-old self would say.
Well, you have a wonderful energy. And as well, one of the things that I admire since the first time probably I heard about you is your capacity of resilience and capacity to come back independent of all what you mentioned. For a lot of people would be, and especially I'm European, like you mentioned, I have South Europe and right now UK as well background, even Nordic. In Europe, we have this sense of not respecting, first of all, the sense of understanding the difficulties, the failure, and come back. In the US, that is a fantastic, and you're a master of that. But you as well, fantastic personality. For instance, for people listening, you were born in an Italian American family. You were one of the first people studying, and you earned an BA in economics, and then you went to Harvard, where you actually some of the students at your time were Barack Obama and Rod Rosenstein, the future Supreme Court Justice, and you credit your time and your education as a springboard for your career in finance and probably a lot of things. And although you never practiced law, you went directly to Goldman Sachs. So I want to just this background, which is quite amazing, and as well, I know how difficult it is come from a background and go to the top of the world in a lot of areas, and where you are now.
Well, it's gradual. I think that, there's a great expression that the Navy SEALs, the United States Special Forces in the U.S. Navy, the Navy SEALs say that if you want to eat an elephant, well, how do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant at one bite at a time. This is their expression, meaning, you have to take one step at a time. And so I sort of tell younger people, think of your life. The first phase is your education. And then the second phase is the formation of your career in terms of getting your training and getting your network established and getting some people in your network that you can rely on. And then obviously finding things that you like and finding things that you want to do. And then the back half of your life should be what we're doing, you and me, Dennis, which is teaching people and trying to be open to people, show your vulnerability to people. Because if you can show your vulnerability to people, then they can have space for their own decision making. They can have space for their own failures and so forth. I have friends of mine that have would answer this question that you're giving me, and they would show me this straight line where they did everything right, Dennis. They started out from the womb, they got born, and they guess took the bottle properly, and they did everything right through. And that's a bunch of BS. You know that, and I know that. So it's not true. And I would rather have people hear the true story, the anxiety, the ups and downs, the bad decision making, which sometimes leads to bad outcomes and bad press, the good decision making, and how did we make that decision? Sometimes the best decisions are accidental, but they're just you're taking a risk, And so when I was in school as an elementary school student in public school in New York, I had very good teachers, and people felt that I was going to go to a good school. My parents didn't have a lot of money, but my guidance counselor in high school was like, you have to send him to Tufts private school. It's up in Boston. He'll do very well there. And my parents didn't really know, and I didn't know, but I had good guidance. I had good teachers giving me good advice. And so then when I got to Tufts, I started getting very good grades. And then in the Italian community in New York, the parents wanted you to be a doctor or a lawyer. I didn't like the sight of the blood, to be honest, so I became became a doctor. I mean, a lawyer. I would never become a doctor. I couldn't take the sight of blood. I wish it was more sophisticated than that. I wish it was more, deeply analytical, but it wasn't. And so now that I'm in law school, I'm getting a little older and I'm recognizing, well, maybe I don't really like this. I don't really like law school. And so now what? And so now I'm at law school. I go to the career center, and turns out there's a lot of interesting jobs in investment banking and on Wall Street. And I like business. And I had a paper route as a kid, and I worked in a number of different jobs. And so I said, okay, I'm going to try this. But Dennis, it was very hard because I had never worked inside a commercial office building before. I had never seen a commercial office building. My father didn't work inside a commercial office building. I was dressed inappropriately. I didn't have the right clothing on when I went to the job interview. I remember the guy said to me, "Hey, you're smart, but you got to have a better suit. This suit is not a good enough suit for Goldman Sachs." And I remember being embarrassed by that. But then you could do two things. You could be embarrassed by that and then not go to the interview, or you could be embarrassed by that, go get yourself the suit, and try to fit in. And so I try to tell people it from a very honest perspective, but to go from the family I went to where I am, I had to take enormous amounts of risk. Had to. And if I didn't take those risks, then I couldn't be where I am. And then, you know, I wouldn't have the ups and downs. Let me just stipulate this to the younger people. If you are trying to do something, do it. Don't be afraid of the failure because you can get through the failure. What you will have a hard time with is the lack of trying. You'll be more happy. You'll be happier with yourself if you do it and you fail than if you don't try. And so that's been the story of my life, frankly.
Well, and what a story. So from Goldman Sachs, like you said, you're fired and rehired, and you actually end up being a vice president of the bank private wealth management. Then you left Goldman Sachs to launch Oscar Capital Management, and after you sold it to Bergman, and you found SkyBridge Capital in 2005. So 20 years of being on the spotlight of the financial world, and two of the biggest organizations in the world, because Goldman Sachs and then Oscar was sold as well to Lehman Brothers. In the meantime to that, and then of course creating SkyBridge. So tell us about this. And like you said, there's a lot of risk, but as well a lot of learning. And you are in the cutting edge part of the markets, capital markets, and all the challenge that went in the last 20 years of financial markets.
So I would say that Goldman was a great place. I had a tremendous amount of training. I have friends. I'm 40 years in business. I left Goldman Sachs 29 years ago, just to be exact. And I would say that I have still friends today. Pick up the phone, I call somebody from my time at Goldman Sachs, and it's still a wonderful experience. And so I would say Goldman had a good culture. Goldman was very compliance centric, which was good for me because I didn't ever want to really do the wrong thing. And so Goldman taught us, I think a good leader takes pressure off of their people by telling them to do the right thing. I think a bad leader is like, oh, Dennis, I need you to commit insider trading. I need you to hurt somebody for us to make money. We didn't do that at Goldman Sachs. And so that was a really good grounding, a good foundation. My own company, I tried to adopt a lot of their practices. But there was lots of sacrifices to have my own company. And so I was doing well. And I remember somebody coming to see me. It was like an old colleague from Goldman. They walked into my office. And they said, "Oh, I'm so excited for you. You're doing so well. I'm going to leave Goldman. I'm going to start my own company." I said, "Okay." And he said, "Isn't it great?" I said, "Well, it's hard." I said, "Yes, it's great, but it's also hard. I'm working harder. I don't have somebody, Dennis, to fix my technology. I have to hire that person. I don't have somebody to take out the mail. I got to hire that person. It's hard." And I said, let me show you where my summer house is." He said, "What do you mean your summer house?" I said, "Well, I'm going to show you where my summer house is. Come down the hall." And he was walking with me, and I opened up the closet. And inside the closet was the servers to run the trading desk. And it was maybe $800,000 at that time, 30 years ago, a lot of money. And I said, "You see, this is my summer house." I said, "If you're willing to put your summer house in the closet," because I didn't have the money for the summer house, I had to have the money, put the money into the business. And it dawned on him, whoa, this is a little bit harder than I thought, right? So the transition from Goldman, big firm, exemplary firm, tiny firm, do it all yourself, back to a big firm. Now, by the way, Lehman Brothers is a very good firm, but they were a little aggressive. They had, I wrote this in my first book, they had Goldman Sachs envy. So they used to compare themselves to Goldman Sachs. I said, "Guys, don't compare yourself to anybody. And listen, young people, you have a terrible life. You start comparing yourself to other people. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. They didn't have your parents. They don't have your looks. They don't have your height, your weight, where you were born. Don't compare yourself to anybody. Live the life that God or the universe has given you and enjoy the life that you have. It's a temporary life. Enjoy it. You don't have to look around and, you know, be sad if you're not richer or be sad or if you're not better. Who cares? Nobody cares." And Lehman was like that. And I think they took on too much risk. And I think that's what caused the bankruptcy. But I left Lehman luckily before the bankruptcy, and they helped me. They helped me grow uh, SkyBridge. And so the last thing I would say before we go to another question is make friends. But one of the ways you can make friends is what Ben Franklin once said. Ben Franklin once said, if you want to make a friend, ask them for a favor. And I'll give people an example. You and I don't know each other that well. I mean, we corresponded a little bit. You asked me to do this, I'm happy to do it because it'll create a relationship between you and me, hopefully, and we'll have some chemistry and potentially some long-term reciprocity where I could be in a position to help you, you could be in a position to help me. And so, Ben Franklin, one of our funniest and one of our cleverest and smartest founding fathers, had this wit about him, but he also had this humility. Ask somebody for a favor, and you can make a real friendships. And so I did that in my career, and I got those people to help me grow SkyBridge.
I love that. It's very special, and it's true. I think it's when you get into your fragility and you get that part where you actually interact with the person is when the magic happens. Is when you really the true relationship happens. And I think we forgot that in all the financial kind of top level business management media. So SkyBridge. So as SkyBridge is an alternative asset manager and a SEC registered investment advisor. So you've been building it to a big financial organization, and as well you've been integrating conventional assets in crypto. So the first question is a bit of the inception of SkyBridge, where it stands now, and the second part, how did crypto came and become so important for you?
So again, these are great questions, and I just want to remind people that the business is 20 years old, but we've morphed and adapted the business maybe four times since we started. And I'll tell the story this way. I have a very good friend. His name is Wolfgang Puck. And you may know Wolfgang. Wolfgang is a restaurant person. He's got a lot of famous restaurants all over the world. But his first restaurant he opened in Beverly Hills. And the name of the restaurant was called Spago, Spago. It was very famous. It was like a fusion restaurant. It was created in the late 70s. And he said to me once, I said, well, your restaurant, at that time it was 40 years old. It's 50 today, but 40 years old. And he said to me, yes, he said, it's 40 years old. He said, but I had to recreate the restaurant many times. I said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, I can't have the same decor in the 1970s. I can't have the same menu. The tastes are changing. The people are changing. We don't smoke in the restaurant anymore. There's no ashtrays anywhere. And it's a really good metaphor for business. It's a really good metaphor for life. And so I started out with a idea where I was going to seed hedge funds. That idea met the global financial crisis. That was very bad, the global financial crisis. And so guess what? We had to change our business model. I ended up buying a fund of funds business from Citibank. It was spinning out of Citibank's company. I paid money for it. I borrowed some money. I got some friends to help me, and I brought that and I integrated it into SkyBridge. And then I went into the conference business because I thought that would help me bring clients. And so we have a 16-year conference business. I then said, okay, we have this opportunity due to our relationships to create a lot of investment activity in the private equity space and sort of the late stage equity space. So we've built that business. And then after I got fired from the White House, I got back to my job. I realized that we needed to learn more and we needed to be more in tune with the digital asset space. And that was a big move because there I was at 57 years old. And people were like, well, why would you do that? These assets are not worth anything. And there was a lot of speculation and nervousness about the assets. And I said, no, I want to do this. And I explained to people why. I ended up writing a book about it. And we looked really smart in the beginning, Dennis. We bought the Bitcoin at 18,000. It went to 69,000. And then it went from 69,000, boom, down to 16,000. And so we went from being really smart, Dennis, to being really dumb. Okay. And people were yelling at me and clients were firing me and they were telling me that I lost my edge and they were telling me that how could I do this? And then, because I have a high profile, they they started writing bad stories about me. And I'm going to show you something because we're on a Zoom. I don't know if you could see this. This was the front page of the New York Post. Can you see that? That's
Yeah,
me
yeah, yeah.
sinking. That's me sinking. See it? That's me
Yes.
sinking in the Bitcoin boat. There's a little dinghy, and they got me looking like Tyrion Lannister from the Game of Thrones, and I'm sinking in the boat. And they said that I'm a dummy and I'm going to lose my business and so forth. And so we got a bunch of comedians, including my son. They make a big picture of this and they put it in a big frame and they put it in my office. Okay. But it's good because it reminds you of your humility. It reminds you of your fallibility. But we stayed in it. So another big lesson for people. We made some changes. We did a lot of research. We thought we were right. So we stayed in it. And well, you're getting criticized. Yes, I'm getting criticized. Oh, the people are writing bad stories about you. Yes, they are. But then why would you stay in it? Because I believe in myself. I believe in my research team and I believe in the things that we're doing. And I'm willing to take the risk. I'm willing to take if I'm wrong, because you can be wrong. And trust me, sir, I've been humbled by life. I've been humbled by markets. And you can be wrong. But if you're wrong for the right reasons, I'm okay with it. And so, yeah, Skybridge's 20 years old, but it's maybe 4 or 5 major adaptations to get it to be 20 years old. The business I have today, let me rephrase that. The business I started in 2005, if I left it the same, probably would have been out of business today.
No, and it's impressive, especially the capacity of resilience, but as well the adaptation. And I think success is about that, is your capacity. Like you said, people that say you are always like this will not exist. And everyone has their challenges in one way or the other. So I have a couple of more questions and questions of time. So you are the author of 7 books. And what I love about your books and about your honesty and straightforward approach is that you have books like Goodbye Gordon Gecko, The Little Book of Hedge Funds, Hopping Over the Rabbit Hole, Trump, the Blue Collar President, Scaramucci and Tony from Wall Street to the White House and back. And you have Web3, Blockchain, the New Economy, and the Self-Sovereign Internet. And the list goes. So the writing and your media is amazing because you have fantastic capacity of expressing and inspiring, but as well honest capacity to approach. So from these books and from where you stay right now is SkyBridge, and you still have a massive digital presence and as well presence in the media, especially in the US, but as well with global impact. How do you stand now, right now, as an author and as well a businessman and financial personality?
In terms of my feeling about the world, in terms of
No, in terms of your thought leadership first.
in terms of what? Say again?
Your thought leadership, your thinking.
Well, this is very accidental as well. So I think that well, let me say this. When I got fired from the White House, if you want to really laugh, go back and read what people wrote about me. It's funny, I was a Jersey Shore cast member. It was Tony Soprano on the Potomac. I mean, they were really ripping me. They were teasing me on Saturday Night Live. The late night comedians were saying a lot of mean things. Then the cable news pundits, there was all kinds of stuff that they were saying. And I remember I went to this crisis communications manager, like a PR person. And then I said, okay, what should I do? They said, go to Tuscany and hide for 5 years. Go buy a villa in Tuscany. You've embarrassed yourself, and this shame that you have now, you can't make it out of there. You got to hide somewhere. Maybe 5 years from now, you can reemerge. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I mean, what are you talking about? I would never do that. And so I went right on the comedy shows like Steve Colbert. I went right on the Bill Maher show. I went to face the music with the pundits and to answer the very tough questions. And I think that the irony of what happened, sir, is that the firing, when Donald Trump fired me, he accidentally made me a very high profile person. He accidentally made me famous. And so then he weirdly gave me a platform for me to express my views and for me to express the things that I've read or the things that I've written about. And he gave me, he gave me this opening. And so when that happens, if you're doing something that people like, they listen. And if you're doing something they don't like, they turn it off. And so, I have tried to stay true to myself, and I've tried to, explain to people what I see, explain what's going on in my business or my political perspective or my life perspective in terms of philosophical grounding of how I get up in the morning and how I think about things. Do you see what I mean?
Yes,
And
impressive.
so when you say I'm a thought leader, this is also very accidental. I'm humbled to be a thought leader, but I will say this: I'm not careful about it, and I want people to know that you should not overthink things in your life. Meaning, I have a podcast right now. It's called The Rest is Politics US. We get 7.5 million downloads a month. And by the way, I'm humbled by that. I'm not saying that to brag to anybody, but I'm bringing up a bigger point. The point is, if someone tells you, well, your podcast is great, you're getting 7.5 million downloads a month, you could freeze up. You say, okay, well, what am I doing? I want to make sure I continue to do exactly what I did to make that happen. That's not me. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be me, and I'm going to try to bring a fresh idea, fresh insight, take risk with the podcast, move in different directions that people may or may not think about, because I don't want to be a person that stays in the status quo. And this is a very big lesson for people in my mind. Comfort is not comfortable. If you're in a comfort zone, then you're not working hard enough. You're not taking enough risk. You're not testing yourself. You got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You want to be an entrepreneur. You want to be a thought leader. You want to be a business leader. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Does that make sense?
No, completely.
Okay.
And
Okay. And so yeah, you're saying I'm a thought leader. Well, I'm happy to be a thought leader, but the flip side of it is I'm accidentally a thought leader. And I take it seriously, but I don't take it that seriously, meaning I want to express myself wholly and authentically and leave the chips wherever they fall.
no, and it's very precious. I am completely with you. And actually, especially, I think if you look at US, the rest of the world, I think the US with all its challenges, I think what you guys have very special is that respect for that resilience and that capacity, which I keep pushing, especially in the education and different areas. So coming back to the financial part, and so you've been making a bridge between the financial assets, conventional, like the centralized internet, the decentralized finance. And at the moment, of course, you've been actually you wrote a book about as well about the internet, the little book of Bitcoin, and you have as well bringing a significant part of your right now assets into Bitcoin. So, and as well, you have been as well focus in Web3, and you have a long-term vision for Bitcoin and the broader cryptocurrency market. So I would like to touch this because you have a serious financial background, of course, in the biggest platforms, but as well, you become as well an evangelist on these areas. So how can we see this centralized money and the decentralized money, and how can we make this bridge? Because one of the challenges, and I want to be provocative here as well, is that we have a paradox right now in the world economy. So we have the world economy that works this kind of the conventional banking systems, and the world that works outside the conventional banking systems. And the two things are working parallel. Of course, if you look, there's $4 trillion of FX being traded every day, whereas the entire capital markets of actually entire financial crypto industry might reach to $11 trillion probably in a couple of years, according to data from American Express. But there's a lot of, actually MasterCard, there's a lot of work to be done there. So how do you see this? And as well, from the investment perspective, bear in mind that you are a regulated fund and all the background you have.
Yeah. So I guess here's what I would say. I would say that new things are hard to adapt. I would say go through history. Even technology as it related to weaponry, the people that had the better weapons, they took more territory from the weaker, less fortunate people that had less technology. I would say that I have found over 5,000 years, if you read the books that are behind me or the books that I have in my library at my home, what we learn is that if there's a better technology, it gets adopted. And so I could sit here in my horse and carriage and I can watch the horseless carriage go by and say, that's a fad. No one's going to do that. Or why would I need the telephone? I have the pigeon or I have the mail service. Why do I need the telephone? But what we find is that if something makes us richer or something makes our lives more efficient or something makes our lives advance in terms of the quality of life, it gets adopted. And so I just would say to people about the blockchain and about this technology, if you can cut the middleman out of our transactions, because for 5,000 years, we have a middleman. And a middleman, every time we do a transaction, the money comes from the government. We can trade hands with each other, but we're trusting a piece of paper or trusting a check from a bank where the money is aligned with the government. And we're transacting back and forth with each other using a third party. If I said to you now we have something that we can program where we can trade value between each other and we don't need the third party, well, let me give you two examples of that. Example number one would be you come to a restaurant, you have a credit card, but it's a 3.5% charge to have the credit card. And you could take the wallet, the digital wallet out of your phone, and you could ask the waiter, say, "Excuse me, what's your wallet address?" And they say what it is, and now you wire the money from your phone to their phone over the blockchain. It's seamless, it's unhackable, and the money's transferred, and the 3.5% savings is there. We're doing a call right now that we couldn't do 40 years ago. You and I are like George Jetson. We have a television in front of us and we're interacting with each other. But 40 years ago, we couldn't do this. Moreover, if I was in Europe 40 years ago, I would have to go to the town square in Rome. I would buy myself a call card. And then they would say, okay, you got 15 minutes to call your parents. Okay, you have, and the call, it could cost $2 a minute or something. And then you get on the phone with your parents and then the phone clicks off when it's over. But now I can go anywhere in Rome and I can log into the internet. And for no money, I can call my parents or even FaceTime them. And so that advancement is something we adopted. So if I could tell you we could do that with the money, there are $7 trillion of transaction verification costs. Those are accountants, those are lawyers, those are credit card fees, Those are wire fees that the banks charge us when we're moving money around the world. And if I told you there's $7 trillion of transaction costs a year, but over the blockchain, this technology could save us those transaction costs. It doesn't mean the banks are going away any more than the phone companies went away when the long distance rates went to zero. It'll just be an adaptation. There'll be changes that are made. And so for me, I look at this and say, yes, there's parallel worlds happening, but they will converge. The horse and buggy road got paved over to make way for the horseless carriage. And the airlines, you know, in 1903, we had the Wright brothers, they took off and they showed that we could fly. 1903. 14 years later, 1917, this is about the length of Bitcoin's creation, maybe 15 years later, 1918, people said, oh, there'll be no commercial airlines. These planes are not durable. They're not going to make it over the Atlantic Ocean. There'll be no commercial airlines, but the technology advanced. And we have obviously this wonderful commercial airline and commercial aviation business. So what I would say to people is you can't see it right now because it's very, very early. But these two worlds are going to converge. And when they converge, it's going to be very, very powerful for the world. It's going to unleash a lot of efficiencies and a lot of economic freedom. And that's what I'm aiming for, you know?
Well, it's very, and I love the analogy in the sense that the velocity of change right now is much bigger, but there are things that are much more important than other, and especially Bitcoin and crypto have all this innovation that is still in the inception, but is already touching every part, and we need to deep dive on that. So, in the space of time, I think I have space for two quick questions. So, you have been doing a lot of things, but one of the things that I find especially is the SALT, a global investment platform connecting institutional asset owners with asset managers and technology entrepreneurs. So this is a powerful platform for networking, and you've been having a huge success with the platform. So can you share some of the takeaways from the past events? And I see as well the ecosystem that you build around that and the discussions that you've been having around both the present financial, economical, and political situation that we're living in.
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say is that we spend a lot of time on our phones and we spend a lot of time on Zoom, especially after COVID. So when you have a conference, you can meet people, you can learn from each other. There can be panel discussions. So I say to people, my conference, SALT, I want three things to happen. Number one, I want people to come and learn something. So we have panels and people can learn from each other. Number two, I want people to meet each other so they can do more business together. And then number three, and I think this is a very important number three, is that I want people to have fun. So I have had bands, I've had hay rides if we're in Wyoming, I've had a nightclub activity if we're in Bermuda. I try to find things to do where people are like, yeah, I'm going to go to that. I'm going to have some fun as well. And I think this is very, very important for us to do this because it's an opportunity to get out of a structured environment where we're either talking to each other on Zoom or we're in a conference room into something more relaxed where we can actually get to know each other, and the result of which I think it can deepen a relationship. So those are my thoughts there. I guess what I would say is that too has had to change. And so after COVID, there were so many people that were online, and it turned out the very high profile speakers people were less interested in. So after COVID, if you wanted to hire Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama or George Bush, it wasn't as much fun. People didn't really care. And so I shifted it again. I moved into a different realm, if you will, where I made it smaller. I made the events more intimate, and that's been better for our business.
And it's amazing the different things and the feedback that you have. So, last question: you are right now in the epicenter of the financial world, the crypto world, the media world and the political world. Actually, you are as well involved in Elon Musk new party, or at least endorsing. So how do you see the next for you? And I love as well one of your last episodes. I just want to highlight for people listening to us. It's amazing because it's a provocation that I love. Is fail more often. It's your title, and I love that because I think if you put a prejudice on fail, you have a problem. I know that is not a problem for you, but what's next?
Well, I mean, you know what? I want to do more in this business. I love our industry. I'm going to continue to write. I'm writing a political book right now. There's a book about what happened to America, how we had a rise of populism. You know, this happened in Italy with Berlusconi. This happened in the UK with Nigel Farage and the Brexit movement, the Yellow Jacket movement. What is in France? You know, how did this happen in the Western democracies? And it's interesting because we're 80 years out from the Second World War now. And so what ends up happening is some of the memory, some of the institutional memory of the reasons why we put things together is ending. And a result of which we have to now rethink the world and rethink directionally where we're going. And so I'm just going to explain what I think worked at the end of the Second World War, what things, frankly, I think we should consider preserving, but then also recognizing that we have to make some changes and offering up some recommendations of what those changes should be to make it a peaceful, more prosperous, more interconnected world.
Well, I think it's an amazing one, and I think keeping in your own words the idea of this resilience, and as well your books, and how you put this together is amazing. So one last thing, if you have a couple of minutes more, is so on the crypto side and on the financial side. Okay, that's the two things. Is obvious that they're right now merging more and more, and of course we have AI as well. We just got a company raising $4 trillion of valuation based on the AI wave. How do you see this particular part, and as well as a person that's been as well on the cutting edge of technology applied to finance, from your servers in your house to different things? How do you see this kind of bridge as AI becomes so advanced, and as well crypto is still not adopted enough, and at the same time we have the traditional finance and non-traditional? Because I think this is a big challenge for people.
Okay, well, all right. Well, I mean, this is something I would say to you. Remember, the AI is a computer program, and the crypto is actually a computer program. And so I think that the AI, as we continue to adopt more AI, will be more reliant on the programmable money. If you have programmable intelligence and programmable money, I think you're going to start fusing those things. I think you're going to start using more programmable money. Remember, the money, whether we like this or not, in the West, the money has been corrupted by the politicians because we make more and more of the money. We overpromise the people. We don't want to tax them, and so we end up taxing them through inflation, and we cheapen the money. You know, this is why in India, you know, a lot of the people like gold because they see what happens to their money. This is why in the United States you have lots of inflation. People have gravitated towards gold and crypto and sort of like hard assets like Bitcoin. And so what I would say to you is we get more advanced with artificial intelligence. It's going to unleash more productivity, which could actually create a more abundant world. I think that we're going to have more secure money. We're going to probably not want to have our money centralized, where you can take the arbitrary or the capricious nature of a politician or a central banker to corrupt your money. You know, and I think I understand this pretty well because my father was a blue collar worker. And so if you took his money through inflation, you took his time and his labor. You know, if you're rich and you own a house, the value of the house goes up, the value of your stocks go up, at least in nominal numbers, pursuant to what they're doing to the money. But if you don't own anything and you have your time and your labor, they pay you $1,000 and then they take 10% of it in inflation. Now you have $900 of purchasing power. They stole 10% of your life. Yeah. You see what I mean? So I do think that these things are going to merge, and I think they're going to advance together.
No, I completely agree. So I know that you have to go, so I want to be respectful. It's been an honor to have you here. There's much more questions, and
well, I really appreciate it. We'll do it again. I appreciate you having me on, and I'm grateful to be on with you.